I'll let you.
So let's see, do we have a quorum to be
Yeah,
able- in this meeting?
Chrissy, hello.
Me, Suzanne,
three,
Jeff,
4,
and,
5, 6, 7. Yep,
Nick.
we're good.
Okay.
So good evening, everyone. This is the reorganization of the Patricia A. Hannaford Regional Technical School District Board. And it's 5 o'clock, and I would like to entertain motions for a chair of the board, as this is a reorganization part of our meeting.
Dana, I'd like to nominate Suzanne to continue as our board chair.
Okay, is there a second? Okay.
Second, Nick.
So moved by Kim and seconded by Nick. Any discussion? Any further nominations?
Can I
Hearing
say
none?
something?
Yes, Missy, feel free.
Because you opened it up for discussion, I would just like to thank Suzanne for her work thus far on the board. I know it's a lot, and I feel like you've been doing a great job to keep us all headed in the right direction. I know it's a lot of work, so thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Missy.
Cheers,
Any
thanks,
other
Missy.
discussion? Judd?
No, I was just echoing what Missy said.
Okay. Any further discussion before we move the question?
She needs a raise.
That's a separate that's a separate motion.
I'm sorry.
That's not the motion.
Well, we need a separate motion for that. So let's take the motion. Anything related to the motion on the table. Okay, hearing no further comments, let's put the motion to a vote. All in favor? Raise your hand.
All right.
I'm assuming that I'm voting for Suzanne as chair.
Suzanne is
Yes.
chair, yes. The
Smith said
motion was moved by Kim and seconded by Nick. Okay,
Thank you.
so let the record show that the chair was appointed unanimously. So Suzanne, I can now that we have a chair for the meeting, I can turn the other officers over to you for action. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, board, for your faith in my work and helping us guide us through another year here on the board. We have the next officer that we have to elect is vice chair. May I have a motion for someone for vice chair, please? Kim is our current vice chair, so
Renominate Kim.
whoops. Did someone, Nick started something and then someone else said something, so.
Go ahead, Nick.
I move to reappoint Kim.
I will second that motion.
Been moved by Nick and seconded by Christina to re-elect Kim as our vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of Kim as vice chair, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's passed. Next is board secretary. This is currently served by Lorraine. Is there a motion to nominate someone for board secretary?
I nominate Lorraine.
Nominate Lorraine.
Wow, you guys are in sync tonight.
I'll second that.
So it was moved by Christina, I believe, and seconded by Judd to nominate Lorraine Morse as board secretary. Are there any other nominations before I close? Hearing none, we'll proceed to, is there any discussion? Sorry. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of Lorraine as your board secretary, please raise your hand
Aye.
or say aye. Any opposed? Motion's passed.
No increase of remuneration.
Next on our agenda is introduction of board members, and I'm just gonna call you as I see you on my screen. Judd?
Judd Markowski, live in Bridport, and I am the WIB.
Thank you. Kim?
Kim Farnham from New Haven, the community at large, board member from the Mount Abe School District.
Christina?
Hi, Christina Macklin, Addison Northwest School District Rep.
Nick?
Stop that. Who did you call?
Nick?
Oh,
Costin?
Nick. Nick representing, from Shoreham, representing ACSD.
Missy?
Missy Beckwith, representing the Workforce Investment Board.
Lorraine?
Lorraine Morse, one of the two Addison Central School District representatives.
And then for administration, we have Dana?
Dana Peterson, Superintendent Director, Hannaford Career Center.
David?
David Roberts, Adult Ed Coordinator.
Jay?
Jay Stetzel, Assistant Director for the Career Center.
And then do
Steve
any of our guests wish to say who they are or, oh, sorry, Austin, before, yes, I missed you.
Oh, and Steve Rooney from Starksboro.
Did I miss you, Steve?
Yep.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find everyone in there.
Mount Abe
Sorry,
School
Steve.
Steve Rooney, Mount Abe School District.
Now Austin.
Austin Haynes, Business Manager.
Okay, let's see if I can make sure I don't miss any public. Linda Barrett? Linda?
Linda Barrett, clerk.
Jake?
Jake Burnham, resident of Cornwall, teacher at the Career Center, and advocate of keeping all programs open despite a global pandemic.
Gretchen?
Gretchen Bailey, bookkeeper.
Then I have MCTV. Eric?
Hi, sorry, my microphone went off. Hi, Eric St. John. I'm the director of ART at the Hannaford Career Center, and I will second Jake's comments.
Wendy?
Wendy Pratt, IB and Curriculum Coordinator at the Career Center.
Yeah?
Brenda Logie, School Counseling Coordinator at the Patricia Hannaford Career Center. And I support Jake's comment.
Patrice?
Patrice Alexander, Administrative Assistant at HTC.
May I have?
Did you get that? Did you get that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
I did. May I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Moved.
Lorraine?
Second.
Is there a second?
Second, Judd.
Judd. So it was moved by Lorraine and seconded by Judd to approve the agenda as printed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Are there any opposed? Motion's passed.
Linda had a, I think.
What?
Suzanne, Linda had a question.
Linda had a question?
Do you
Yeah.
need to change your agenda if you are not going to appoint committees?
We are though, right? You decided, Suzanne, or no?
Well, I have only heard back from a few of the board members, so I don't really have, I haven't heard back from everyone. So I probably can't completely appoint committees.
How many have you heard from everybody who's here or not here, or, I mean, are the people you haven't heard from here tonight?
The people that I've not heard from are not here.
My question, Suzanne, to that is that we have committee meetings that are already scheduled. They've been scheduled since the beginning of the year. And if we do not have committees, I mean, people can still meet. There just won't be a quorum and the committee won't take any action. But we will just need to know whether those committees can continue to meet moving forward. For example, on facilities, I know we have a quorum present at this meeting this evening. And that would allow us to continue having those meetings. If somebody is going to be added to a committee assignment later on, then that could happen at a subsequent meeting. But I would not want the committees not be able to meet as a result of commitment by various board members to join a particular committee. But
So currently, Dana, on facilities, I have Lorraine and Missy. Nick was going to move to budget, and Lorraine was going to go to facilities, and Sean has asked to be replaced. So
Okay.
Open for discussion. Does Steve have a preference?
So currently I'm on the negotiating committee,
Negotiation.
We meet tomorrow night. Mhm.
which meets tomorrow night.
Suzanne, can we assign committees? And then if people for some reason, don't want that committee, I mean, can we assign enough committees? Can we assign committees tonight and then add the people or add them and, just,
the negotiation committee is set. It's Steve, Kim, myself, and Judd. Engagement, I only have one on engagement, and
I'm willing to be on engagement, so you'd have two people, so, and then you could add somebody else, or, one of these other people who's not here tonight, if they want to be on it.
I'm just going to mention that there shouldn't be any discussion now. It's just a question of whether we're
Right.
approving the agenda as is or if you're changing it.
Oh, that's true. Thank you,
Yeah.
Linda. So let's
So-
try to do it tonight.
want to try doing it tonight?
Yeah,
Yes.
All right, so then we'll leave it on.
okay.
Thank you.
So you have a motion on the floor.
So the motion on the floor is to approve the agenda as it is written. Is
Yes.
there any further discussion?
No,
All in favor of approving the agenda as it is, please say aye or raise your Zoom hands.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Objections? Any abstentions? Motion's passed. Visitor comments. We always appreciate comments from visitors, whether they be staff or public or anyone. Does anyone have anything in particular, or I'm not seeing any hands? Hi, Lisa. Sorry I didn't see you the first time through. I apologize.
Hi, that's okay. I joined a little late. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Thank you for coming. Is there any public comment, or are you? Okay. I don't hear any public comment or see any raised hands, so I'm going to presume that there is none. Dana, correspondence?
There was going to be some correspondence. That correspondence was retracted, so there is no information to share regarding the item of sick time to be discussed in executive session. So
Okay, thank you.
that can come off the agenda.
Minutes of February 10th, 2021.
We can't hear you, Suzanne.
The minutes of February 10th. Did everyone read them? Are those all set? I don't see any raised hands, so I'm going to say that those were fine.
Good.
Nick, do you have the printout of the accounts payable for February?
I do. So the general fund, on February 23rd, there was expenditures of 35,157.71 cents. And on March 10th, 66,205.88 cents. Revolving fund expenditures were 4,565.14 cents. Two payrolls. Payroll of February the 12th was for $84,330.80. And the payroll on February 26th was $82,596.32. So the expenditures were approved by Suzanne and myself.
Great, thank you. All right. On to committees. So negotiation committee is all set. That is Steve, Kim, Suzanne, and Judd. Judd is chair. Facilities, Lorraine and Missy. I believe Sean was on that committee, but he is a WIB member who we're going to discuss in a few minutes, whose position will be open. Engagement committee, I had Christina. I had been sitting in on it because there was only 2 people on it. And I also sit on budget, so Lorraine, you said you would move to engagement, is that true?
I'll do engagement too, sure.
Okay. Budget and policy, right now there's Nick. Judd, you were on that. Did you want to stay?
Yeah, I'll stay on that.
Okay. So right now there's like 2 on everything, and I guess I'll drop into as many of them as I can to make 3. So that, and then when I find out from the others like Karen and Mike and our new WIB member that we will be working to appoint, I'll add them into other committees as it works for their schedules.
Sorry, Suzanne, who was the other name you just mentioned besides Karen?
So Karen and then Mike McGrath. And then whoever fills Sean's seat, who would be a new WIB member that we are in the process of getting someone new.
And so Lorraine, you're going to be on both committees?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love to work. Put me on all of them.
Lorraine, you may regret that. Lorraine does live pretty close, so she doesn't even really have to start up her car to get here.
Well, we're doing Zoom meetings, so I don't even
I know we're doing
leave my
Zoom.
room.
So, so if someone finds that as the year goes on that, a committee time isn't working for them, or they're finding themselves overwhelmed, please reach out and say something, and maybe we can juggle around some committee assignments so that it works for everyone. Because I can't tell you how crucial it is to have board reps not only here at the board meetings, but also working and meeting in those committees, because without those committees, we really struggle to keep things moving forwards. And I know facilities has got their hands full right now with their proposals that will be coming forward shortly. And, you know, we've got a lot of irons in the fire that need all of our attention. And I so appreciate everyone being able to take the time out of their day to be able to not only make the facility, you know, all the different committee meetings, but also to make the board meetings. And I know when we go to look for people, we say, oh, it's this and this, and people are like, oh, well, that's not so bad. And then when they really get into it, then sometimes they find out that it's more than that. So I thank you all.
Suzanne,
moving-
just for,
yes.
before we move on, Karen Beinauer was a parent member of the Community Engagement Committee. If she's willing, that would be a great continuation for her as a WIB board member now. So.
Right. And I reached out to her and I didn't hear anything back. So I will reach out again and ask her about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, policy 2.4, financial planning and budgeting. I'm going to take a guess, say Austin.
That's a good guess, Suzanne. Yeah, I'll take it from here. So this is a quarterly policy we looked at most recently in December. And I'll just get into the details. It reads, the superintendent shall not cause or allow financial planning for any fiscal year or the remaining part of any fiscal year to deviate from the board's approved budget, risk financial jeopardy, or fail to derive from a multi-year plan. And so the policy has three major buckets or categories. The first is, it reads further, there will be no financial plans that risk incurring those situations or conditions described as unacceptable in the board policy 2.3, financial conditions and activities. So this is a policy we looked at last month, and it details just generally our year-to-date spending and borrowing on our line of credit, any interfund transfers, our accounts payable obligations, and capital acquisitions. So there have been no violations of that policy that we are aware of. So the second section reads, there will be no financial plans that omit credible protection of revenues and expenses, separation of capital and operations items, cash flow, and disclosure of planning assumptions. So this is a bit more detailed, but it basically details or outlines our internal controls processes with respect to how we're tracking and managing revenues and deposits from the Agency of Education. So there's a description there about cash receipts and how those are deposited and tracked. It gets into a bit of a description about our purchase order system and how we have an approval process for expenditures. And then finally, it touches on our line of credit borrowing and the cash flow monitoring. The last question says there will be no financial plans that provide less for board prerogatives during the year in which the year then is set forth in the governance investment policy. So in short, and to summarize this paragraph, it basically just states that we are working within the confines of our budget for this fiscal year, and any additional spending or capital expenses are being tracked through grant awards that we received recently through the CARES Act. And that is essentially it.
Is there any questions or concerns or anything for Austin? As I flip through all of my faces on here, I don't see any raised hands, so I'm going to presume there is none. May I have a motion to approve policy 2.4?
So moved, Judd.
Thank you, Judd. Is there a second?
Second, Lorraine.
So it's been moved by Judd and seconded by Lorraine to accept policy 2.4, financial planning and budgeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none and seeing no raised hands, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed.
Suzanne,
Yes, Steve?
were we supposed to vote on the appointments to the committee? Since it's on the action list.
No, that's a good question. I don't know if we voted on them before in the past. I think we've just appointed them, so we might have put them in the wrong spot in the agenda.
And do you normally vote on the consent agenda?
We do that as we approve the agenda, and approving the agenda that approves the consent agenda.
Okay. You think I would
Normally,
have
Steve, for clarification, normally the chair just makes those appointments.
Okay.
So it could have, I suppose, occurred under the informational agenda, but the board was taking action to appoint those folks. So, but there was no formal vote needed for that.
Is there any other? So guys, what, if you're wondering what I'm doing, is I'm running the arrows back and forth, looking for raised hands or someone like glaring at me to see if someone needs anything. So if I take a little bit of time in between, that's what I'm trying to do. So.
Just a point of clarification, Suzanne,
Yes,
to
Dana.
Steve's point, I did write down, and I would check with our clerk. I had a motion to approve the consent agenda, but I do not know if it was acted on. So if that's what Steve's question was, I can't answer that question. Maybe Linda can.
There was no motion for the consent agenda. The minutes were spoken about. There were no changes. They went right on to the bills.
Okay.
There was no motion made.
I will move to approve the agenda.
I'll second
The consent agenda.
the consent agenda.
You don't need a motion for the consent agenda. You only do that if you need to pull something and act on it separately.
There you go.
Right. So, okay.
Linda.
just, I think all boards do things differently. Like we always make a motion to approve the consent agenda for some reason. Not Abe, so that's why I was confused.
That's okay.
It's assumed unless you pull something out.
So are we all clear as mud on agendas and consent agendas and motions? All right. Hiring. Dana, this is you.
Yes. So this evening I have two resumes. Well, you have two resumes that should be in front of you from your board packet for long-term subs to cover positions, to fill out positions for the rest of the year. One is for our diesel program and the other is for our auto program. And those resumes are in your packet. So the first one is for David Mills, and the second one is for Josh Spiegelman. David Mills has been serving as a substitute for us for several months and has been doing a very good job. We've posted the position, and it is the consensus of the group, the North Campus group, that that it would be in our best interest to continue with that for consistency. So David was brought to me as a recommendation to take to the board. You have his resume in your packet, and I have begun the process to apply for an apprenticeship license for him so that he could be eligible to continue the year and finish it out for us. With respect to Josh Spiegelman, Josh Spiegelman was the unanimous recommendation to me from the auto search committee that was convened to look for a replacement for Paul Orzechowski, who left back at the first of the year. And that committee has forwarded on his resume to me. I actually interviewed him as well, and believe that he would be a valuable substitute to cover our needs for the rest of the year. I have also begun the process of applying for an apprenticeship license for him to continue for the rest of the year. And just to give you an idea, we cannot have, by AOE guidelines, cannot have someone substitute for 60 consecutive days without being licensed. That's on some kind of a license, whether it's a temporary license, a permanent license, or an apprenticeship license. To let you know, an apprenticeship license can be granted to someone with at least 6 years of experience in the industry or 4 years of experience in the industry with an associate's degree in that subject. And both of these candidates meet those criteria.
So Gina, you said that Josh has an associate's degree, at least?
He has 12 years of experience in the industry. We're still waiting on a couple of records, official transcripts, but both of these individuals have the requisite training in the industry, regardless of whether they would have the post-secondary training to qualify for an apprenticeship license.
Dana, what's the
Yeah.
timeline that you would hear from the AOE on that? And is there any chance that they say no on those licenses?
That has never occurred in the past, and it's an ongoing process. It takes several days, sometimes a couple of weeks. But generally speaking, I make sure that the person is eligible before I start the process. It's too labor intensive to do it otherwise. And you can't really start the process until you have a person that you are able to hire. So.
Great, thank you.
Welcome. Well, Lorraine or Nick? Nick first.
Nick? Sorry, Lorraine, I didn't see you.
That's all right.
The resume of Josh is a little truncated. Huh? There's no, as Suzanne said, there's no mention of academic achievements or background prior to getting this first job with Poulain.
Mm-hmm. My understanding, I can.
Typically, a CV has a lot more on it than that.
I'm sorry?
Typically, a resume would have a lot more detail than that.
Indeed, I have spoken to him about the academic transcripts, and he was supposed to be getting those to us. That was also a request from the interviewing committee, the screening committee. So we're still waiting on that. I don't know if Jay or Austin have more updated information on that than I do. Yes, Lorraine.
So Dana, is it your intent that these two gentlemen will just be to get us through the school year, and you're going to be advertising to fill these positions?
That's correct.
Okay.
In fact,
what is your
that's the way an agreement would be structured, as Austin has done in the past. So because we have not really had the opportunity to do a full search, and we have the constraints of only having 60 days to have somebody in without having a license, we have to go through this process to make sure that they are valid instructors under AOE guidelines.
I'll move to approve.
I'd second.
Long-term subs. And Lorraine has seconded the two long-term subs. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none and seeing no raised hands, I'll say we proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So my fellow board members.
I will abstain because I would like to hear more about Josh's academic background.
Okay, so board, I only heard from two people when I asked for yay votes, and I didn't see any hands. I didn't see any hands when I asked for nays or hear anything. Kim? And I have one abstention, so I can't. Let's start over. We've had a motion moved and seconded to hire these two individuals as long-term subs. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
So my count is 6 with 5 with 1 abstention, or 6 with 1 abstention, and you not voting.
Suzanne, is it easier for you if we virtually raise our hand and then you can count the virtual hands?
That's probably easier.
So say, or we can just keep our hands up longer too. So maybe she's not getting a chance to see us. So whatever you want us to do.
Because what I have to do is I have to move the arrow to see all of your faces.
Okay. So do you want us to do our virtual hand in the future, or what do you want us
All
to do?
know how to do the virtual hand. That works great. If you don't, then just hang on while I try to count people.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Moving on. We have action on WIB members. Terms are to expire in 2024. So as Dana pointed out, that according to the bylaws, WIB members, even though they're appointed and we accept them, that we then have to reapprove them for 3 years, I believe is the way the.
That's correct, because their terms expire 3 years from the initial appointment, and they can be reappointed or reconfirmed. And that would be Judd and Missy at this point in time.
So who and Missy?
Judd.
Oh, okay.
So there was some confusion because Judd actually filled a vacant position that had 2 years left. And so that's why he's come up, or had a year left. And that's why he's coming up again a short time after he was initially appointed.
So, Judd and Missy, would you both be willing to stay for another 3 years?
Missy, you want to go first?
Thumbs up.
Missy
Yeah,
says yes, she's got a thumb up.
I'm not sure I can do a commitment to 3 years, but if it's possible to stay on until you find somebody to replace me and however that process works, I'm happy to still participate in whatever capacity. I don't know if there's a place for that.
So, Judd,
I think, Judd, what we would have to do would be to appoint you for 3 years, and then if at some point you found that you could not continue, then you would resign, and we'd have to find someone to replace you.
Okay, well then, yes, I'm happy to try to stay. Yeah, I'll stay on for 3 years.
Okay, thank you, Judd. So may I have a motion to accept Judd and Missy for 3 more years with their terms to expire in 2024?
So moved, Kim.
Second.
And
Nick.
seconded to have have Missy and Judd continue as WIB members with their terms to expire in March of 2024. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye or raise your Zoom hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed. Thank you, Missy and Judd, for willing to serve for another 3 years. Dana, are you going over the policies for first reading, or who's doing that?
I can do that. And we won't have to spend a whole lot of time because this is just basically the warning. We've decided to change the wording on the agenda just so that people will know between first reading and second reading. So this is the first reading. Next month's would be the second reading. This is for warning. The next month's would be for action. So the first policy is a recommended policy that's been updated by the Vermont School Boards Association, and it is the board superintendent relationship. You have the policy there in front of you, and you've had that in the board packet. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them. It is a policy that we currently do not have, so this would be a new policy. The second policy is public complaints about personnel. That is also a recommended policy. It would be replacing a policy that we currently have. That is in your packet, and so is the complaints about school personnel, which was file code KLD, last adopted in May of 2007. That policy has also undergone significant revision. So you have those to compare. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. And this is just for the first reading. So next month you would be looking for action.
So then Dana, if we aren't taking action, should they not have been under informational then?
You have to take action to warn them. The
Oh,
next.
okay, that's what I was thinking, but you kept saying we didn't have to take action, so I was confused.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. What I mean is you don't have to take action to adopt or to reject the policy, but you do have to take action to announce the first reading.
That's what I was thinking, but when you said you didn't have to take action, I was like, maybe I'm confused
sorry.
tonight. It's been a long day.
I misspoke. Yep.
So, Dana, Nick.
Yes.
This is probably just, but the new policy doesn't include the record keeping paragraphs of the old policy. What to do with the paperwork.
Are you talking about public complaints?
Yes.
What is your actual reference?
Well, if you look at the old KLD,
yep.
You will see 3 paragraphs at the bottom there concerning what to do with the result.
Oh, of records.
Yes.
That's actually going to be addressed in another policy that the Budget and Policy Committee will be taking up later in the spring, which is student records. So that is addressed in another policy, and I believe it's be cross-referenced.
But this is more than student records, right? This is.
So that seems a little confusing, Dana, so.
Right, yep. All of those, all of those complaints are identified in the collective bargaining agreement. My apologies. I'm getting confused in the number of policies that we've been looking at.
So that won't be addressed in the policy.
No, not needed to be, because it's addressed through the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay.
The rest of the new policy that was put out by the Vermont School Boards Association has the general structure, and the specifics are found within the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any
In fact,
other questions?
that last line says, it is the intent of the board that the rights of employees under collective bargaining agreements in the Vermont law be protected through the administration of this policy. So it's there by reference.
So I just want to clarify, Dana, is B22 a brand new policy or it's a revision of?
It's a revision of the, it's the
Okay.
Vermont School Boards Association recommended policy, which is a revision to the 2007 policy.
And what number is that 2007 policy?
You
The
have
same
it in the
number?
packet? No, the numbers that are, the codes that are used by the Vermont School Boards Association are different from the codes that are used by the Code Finder policy manual, which is a different categorization process. But it's called, it's KLD file code, and it's complaints about school personnel.
And is that in our packet as well, or did I
Yes,
miss?
no, it's in the packet. Yep. They should all have been listed together and grouped. That's one of the things that I was trying to do when I sent out the email to let you know, so that they.
Oh, yeah, here, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other concerns or questions or about the policies? If not, if there are none, I will take a motion to warn these two policies for next meeting.
Moved, Lorraine.
Second,
So-
Judd.
It was moved by Lorraine and seconded by Judd to move to warn these policies for next meeting, which is, and the policies are board superintendent relationship and public complaints about personnel. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no raised hands, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye or raise your Zoom hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed. So that ends the action agenda. We'll move on to the informational agenda. As you might have heard me say earlier on, Sean Flynn has found that his business between the East Coast and the West Coast is taking off, and he has asked if we could find a replacement for him. He says that he has enjoyed his time on the board. He really appreciates the work of the board and only wishes that he had more time in his day so that he could stay on with us. He would also like us to find him a place that he could continue to serve, but maybe not as busy as the board position. So Dana and I have already reached out to the Addison County Workforce Alliance Group to see if they would help us start finding a new person for the board. And if you know of anybody that might be interested, that is in the business world, in the community, that would be really great. Their names and a resume and a cover letter saying why they want to be on the board would have to go in front of the AQUA board, and they would vote on that person. The information can come to Dana, can come to me. What we asked for from the WIB board was if they would help us finding somebody in construction trades. So, Dana, anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it. The AQUA committee meets once a month, and the steering committee for AQUA meets once a month. Suzanne and I are on the steering committee. So we can take that to the steering committee, and then they can schedule a meeting and an interview for appropriate candidates. So if you get us someone who's interested, we can give them more information about that.
So next is facilities presentation on survey results and EEI update. Is that you, Missy?
I think it is. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Let's see. I don't think Dana was prepared. I just wondered if it would be helpful to share some survey summaries, and I can just talk about it. So as many of you know, we did 2 separate surveys. One survey was of board members, and the second survey was of faculty and staff. And the intent was to really get an understanding of the project, what was the priorities for everyone, and to see if the direction the facilities committee was going aligned with the community. And I'm pleased to report that it really does. The survey, when we pulled that all together, really showed support for the infrastructure needs and focused less on cosmetic needs. And so it was really good to have that affirmation, if you will, for the facilities committee, because that's where we were at initially. And those that looked at it knew that there was an option A, which is everything, right? Brand new facility, essentially, all new infrastructure, everything looks pretty. And then there was option B, which was focusing mostly on infrastructure. And the initial survey asked if folks would do what they wanted, all of option A or option B, and then option B was some of option A. And there was a lot of feedback that said, and some of option A. So we wanted to dig into that a little bit deeper. And we received varying results. And so we paused to say, we really need to engage EEI again to understand, okay, so if we do all of option B, what are options to add in things from option A? Because it's not as though you can necessarily choose the asbestos abatement without considering implications for other areas. A good example is floor covering, and there was mixed support for that. But if you say we're gonna do 100% asbestos abatement, then the flooring goes with that. And so where we are right now is that EEI has committed to look at the full scope of work and help us understand, if you choose this item, here are the other things that need to be considered for those options. So it's less of a presentation and just giving you an update for today. EEI has committed to get that back to us within 2 weeks, and then we'll be able to give you a better understanding of next steps.
And Missy, if you like, I can share my screen so that people can see the results of that survey if you'd like, since I queued that up while you were talking.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. I think the visual is great.
Great. And I'll let you comment. Oops. Ms. Host, if you could make me co-host or allow me screen sharing privileges, that would be great.
That's Patrice. Patrice.
I think you can, Dana. I think I marked that you could, but
Nope,
go.
I can't.
Okay, hold on, hold on. Okay, there you go.
Perfect. Okay. Can you see that?
So we'll just walk through that. Thank you, Dana. So these are all components that were included in option A, and they all cost more money than option B. And the first column you'll see there is if you totaled all of the survey results, meaning the number of people that responded, there's where the support is. So for instance, 62% said full asbestos abatement. Whereas when you get to flooring, which we would consider cosmetic, there was much less support. The same for new millwork, which would be cabinetry and stuff, those sorts of things. You get to ceiling, carpentry, soundproofing, and support goes way up. Insulation, there's good support for that. Exterior soffit and cosmetic improvements, not much support. Does anyone have questions on that?
I'd just like to add, can you hear me?
Yes.
Another example, Missy, that DEI mentioned was solar. And, you know, solar would be nice, but does that imply a new roof or extending the life of a roof? So a solar has a life of over 20 years, but if your roof only has 10 years left on it, you're talking about a much different type of challenge.
Yeah, so they would recommend doing a roof before putting solar on if the life was not at least, if the extended life of your roof was not approximately 20 years, if you hadn't just done
at least 20 years.
Right.
How far did this survey go out?
Board members and faculty and staff.
Long story short, we didn't get a lot of responses, or as many as we had hoped to get.
It was basically 6 board members and 10 staff, I think, Dana, right?
That's correct. Yep.
I apologize. I was one of the delinquent ones.
It provided us at least with a framework within which to guide the conversation. And one of the things that we've talked about at some level, I can't remember, I think it was at the last Facilities Committee meeting, is having this go out to a wider audience when we do awareness of the needs. And when we promote the need for those improvements among community members and our partners. And then at that point in time, we were thinking that the Community Engagement Committee could take responsibility for distributing that on a wider basis to members of Addison County, like we've done for our mission and vision statement and other things, and getting several hundred responses to give us some additional guidance. But before we refine the survey, that the results of which you've just seen, we're going to get the crosswalk from EEI in about 2 weeks for us to be able to look over and then discuss at our next Facilities Committee meeting in April 5th, I believe. So that information will be helpful because it will provide a price tag for some of the options, and it will also allow us to better link the components of the project so that we can get specific feedback. And as Missy and Nick have said, if you want to do full asbestos abatement, you would have to take up the floors and replace those. So they'd give us a full cost for that, not just the asbestos itself. They were giving us a cost for asbestos removal and then flooring, and some of the flooring has asbestos in it. So they would tease that out for us.
So, Dana, question. So
I just want to add some comments if I could.
Sure.
Okay, so the other topic that the Facilities Committee has been tossing around is the potential for state support for construction projects. And it's been, I'll just say, a little bit difficult because I think if I were to guess, I think there'd be a whole bunch of for doing the full scope of work if we knew that a significant portion of it would be covered by other state funding as opposed to being all bond. And there is some value in doing everything that's on the list. You know, we're trying to be wise with the money, but at the same time, and I put this out to the Facilities Committee before, if we do just the infrastructure, that's fine, and the facility's operational and we're not worried about, you know, boilers failing and so on. But at some point in the near term, the cosmetic work will need to be done. And to somebody's, EEI's point in the meeting, you know, there is, or maybe it was John Curler, there is a component of the cosmetic work that adds value to the programming, to the advertising. You know, it's the difference of having a modern Essex facility as opposed to an old outdated facility. So I'll just put that out there for folks to consider.
And I was just offering testimony today on CTE, the impact of CTE, the impact of the coronavirus health emergency on CTE. And one of the topics that came up before the House Education Committee was the need for construction aid to be able to help offset costs for buildings that are at least 50 years old and older. So we had a representative of the CTE centers from Burlington present, and I also offered a little bit of testimony supporting the need for that construction aid to be reinstated. So I do know that there are some bills making their way through the legislature to address that particular concern. And they're going to be doing some type of a feasibility or a needs assessment, excuse me, about all schools in Vermont, but centers are part of that.
My question is, if we lease the building from ACSD, is it our responsibility to do all of these renovations, or does it come under the landlord? Does that
So
make
we have
sense?
an interesting arrangement with ACSD. Anything that's inside is our responsibility. Anything that's on the grounds and outside is ACSD's. So for example, the parking and the pavement would be their upgrade responsibility. Anything that's building related would be ours. The mechanical system, the internal system, the plumbing, heating, ventilation.
So even if we approve the the parking improvements, for instance, or the pavement improvements, that would then have to go to the ACSD board for approval.
So we asked them, because they were doing such a comprehensive assessment, and they pointed out that the parking lot was in a real bad state of disrepair. We decided to go ahead and get at least an estimate of what that would cost. And then we could pass that along to ACSD. That also speaks to the need for the construction aid, because they could avail themselves of that as well, because the property belongs to them, the land on which it's located, and we're responsible for the building.
So we wouldn't actually be authorizing a bond for that work. You'd be
No.
simply passing that onto them.
Correct.
I have a quick
Although-
question.
Although I do know in the past that for small projects, the Career Center has actually paid for some limited paving because it needed to be done.
So I'm just wondering if that construction aid comes through, would the facilities committee then be re-looking at the work, say to expand if we need a new roof, or like, I'm sure you're looking at the long-term issues of the building as well, that don't fall under the scope of this EEI work. Would you then be thinking about adding some of those things in addition to this project? Just curious.
Mr. Nick, do you want to comment first?
Missy, you go first.
Sure, no problem.
My answer is simple.
I think that's one of the things that causes us angst, to be honest with you, because we want to keep moving forward, and we've been on borrowed time already for a lot of the mechanical systems. At any point now, they could fail, and it would be a reasonable expectation that they would, because John's done such a good job of taking care of them. They're already well beyond their useful life. So we don't really have a lot of time to wait, but at the same time, if we knew we were going to get some state funding, we would absolutely look at, okay, what's the scope of work if we're making a longer term plan?
I like the word angst. I'm not sure at this point we're really in the business of nice to have. I think the school system in Vermont has got, major challenges. So nice to have is something I don't think we can do.
Lorraine, did you have something you wanted to say, or?
I didn't have my hand raised, but yeah, I just wanted to ask Dana, realistically, do you really see school financial aid construction in the near future?
If the legislature acts on that, my understanding is that there's a lot of support for reintroducing that because people understand the dire state of many school buildings in Vermont right now. So we think that there'll be something forthcoming. So what we've done is we've put together a timeline that would have us following through on this procedure and having EEI come back to us with a lot of updated figures sometime in May, hoping that that would coincide with the end of the legislative session and knowing what bills were being proposed to the governor for supporting that work, because we've already used a significant amount of federal dollars, and we have more based on what the agency has, on the updates that we've gotten from the Agency of Education on replacing air filtration systems. So those things are being addressed, and that raised the question about the infrastructure. So there is a significant desire to get that underway to determine what that aid needs to be in terms of total scope. And then they would probably allocate that on a cycle such as what was happening previously before it was discontinued. So optimistically, yes. In the next 12 to 18 months, I think we could see money that would be available for addressing infrastructure needs. Now, would it be, like Nick said, would it be addressing everything that would be nice to have? Maybe not. But I think that at the legislative level, as well as the health and safety level, as well as the cabinet level of the governor's office, there is an acknowledged need for improved infrastructure for schools.
Well, that's good news. I mean, I don't think anybody disagrees that there's need for infrastructure. I'm just trying to figure out where that money's coming from. And there will be a zillion schools all trying to get that money. So I don't know. I mean, I'm glad you're feeling optimistic about it, because to me, I'm dubious, but I mean, that's great to hear.
Well, it's been absent for nearly a decade. So
Oh, I know. I mean, we've been involved with it, in the past, when I've been on other school boards and had been able to take advantage of it. And obviously we haven't been able to in a long time. So, I mean, there's going to be a million schools all trying to get that money. And again, where is that money coming from? So it'll be interesting to find out.
Well, it would be prioritized. And
right. No. I mean, nobody's had access to that money for a long time. So there's going to be a lot of schools who are all going to be needing it. So,
well, there are some schools and some CTE centers that have had renovations done in the last decade. So I don't know if everybody would be in the same circumstance. But
well, yeah, we'll wait and see.
Yep.
Else for the facilities committee? Okay, so moving on, reports to the board. There were reports in your board packet. Does anybody have questions for any of the report writers?
Suzanne, I had one thing I wanted to ask Jay about that wonderful newsletter. Thank you. And I was wondering if it might be possible for you to send it to the school boards as well, which would be awesome, or us reps could send it along as well. But if it's easy for you to do that, that would be great.
Yeah, either way, I don't know if I have all the email addresses or can access the group emails that each of your boards have. So I'm happy to do it if I can, but it's probably easier for you to forward it to your boards. And actually, I'll take that opportunity to just mention, please forward it further than that. You know, if you have other email groups that would be interested in learning more about what we're doing at the Career Center, you know, we hope that the newsletter continues to be a regular thing, a way to communicate. And, you know, we also want to make sure that people know, you know, there's still room in our programs and all of that. So, yeah, please share widely and encourage, you know, encourage people to learn more about the Career Center.
Jay, is that newsletter going to be linked on the website?
Yeah.
It's there now.
I couldn't find it, Jay.
Yeah. We just did that today. And actually we put it on the Facebook page
At
and
4:30.
You should see it on the next Front Porch Forum post in most of our communities. So we had this like brainstorm. We're like, why didn't we do this like a few days ago when the newsletter originally came out? So.
Great, thank you. And I think actually it's probably a good idea for us to share Dana's reports with our school boards too, because it gives everybody an idea on what's happening.
What we can do is send them to the admin assistants and they'll post them or distribute them. That's what I found to be very helpful. So if you'd like us to do that, we can certainly do that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The more they can see what's happening is good.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, it was a good newsletter, Jay.
Thank you. It wasn't just me. I had some help. But hopefully we'll highlight some.
The website at 4:30.
Right. There you go. But yeah, we'll highlight some additional programs in subsequent editions, and yeah. So thank you.
Good.
Comments or questions around any of the reports that were submitted? Nick is very
Well, I love
stoutly looking through this like, I got to find something.
I love Dana's report. But
thank you. I think
I was just on your review of sort of staff, the second page with the 11 people under observation.
that's a joint report from me and Jay.
Yes.
That's what we're referring to.
Is 11? 11 sounds like a big number compared to the other ones. Is that because you haven't had the time to do them, or?
I'm not exactly sure what you're.
Well, it says 11 observations conducted and scheduled.
Yes.
Whereas you've done 15 walkthroughs.
No. We've done, actually, the numbers are being updated, but we've done 6 walkthroughs and we've done 6
6
observations. So we've done 6 out of 11 on the formal observations, and we've done 6 out of 15 on the walkthrough visits. Walkthrough visits are a little easier to conduct than the formal observations. Well, so if you have a question, we'll be happy to answer that. But.
No, just I was looking at the 11. It seemed like a big number compared to 15.
Well, that is ambitious to do 11 people in a year, but we're making good progress. I think it's safe to say.
Okay.
And Nick, that's roughly half of the faculty that need formal observations, and then we will do the other half next year. So just to split them up so that we obviously don't have to, we're not doing all of them in one year. Then we'll just rotate back and forth.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments, observations?
Your voice tends to fade out, Suzanne, every once in a while.
Sorry about that. Anything else for the good of the board before I call for 4.1 governing style. Nothing? Missy, since we have you back, may I ask you to do policy 4.1 governing style tonight, please?
Sure, I'll try not to be too long-winded, but I think the meeting went well. There was good discussions, good questions. And so thank the board members for all of that. And then I just want to comment about the reports from the different areas like Jay and Austin and Dana. They have really beefed up, in my opinion, the report outs for these meetings. And I love the idea that they get shared widely to our sending schools, because I think they represent how well the Career Center is being currently managed and how much effort's going into keeping it moving forward. So thank you to you folks as well.
Great, thank you, everyone. So we are slightly ahead of schedule tonight, which is terrific. So I sent out the executive session link. So before we go, we would need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of negotiations and personnel.
Moved, Lorraine.
Second, Judd.
It's been moved and seconded to move into executive session for the purpose of negotiations and personnel. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Dana has a question.
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I
You
see
can
Dana.
vote. I'll ask it afterwards. But
Any abstentions? Okay, so we're